Oh my goodness, I cannot believe this myself. Somebody pinch me. 4 years ago, we were in lockdown. I had some time on my hands and had thought to myself, you know what? You've been wanting to start a real estate podcast for some time now. I think that time has come. Let's figure this out. The Denver Homes Market Report was born and has now grown into an international show. This is your host, Ricky.schoonover of Mode Real Estate. We are now on iHeartRadio. We are at Apple Podcasts. We are on Spotify. And don't forget to ask your smart speaker, hey Alexa, play podcast, the Denver Homes Market Report. We also have one of those Sonos speakers connected to our TV, and my podcast is also played through there on Apple Podcasts. Then, of course, our own local radio station who plays only local Front Range artists. They too are playing the Denver Homes Market Report on their podcast Sundays. Be sure to check out Denver Open Media anywhere online or at 92.9 or 89.3. Quick shout out to Calvin Parker Jr. for working with us and our sponsorship on the programming there at Denver Open Media. We are proud to have the DenverHomesMarket.com and the Denver Homes Market Report monthly podcast sponsor such an amazing local radio station. You know, here we are 4 years later, and oh my gosh, this show has grown. Today is the first Thursday of the month, and you all know what that means. Tomorrow is First Friday here in the Arts District on Santa Fe. The festivities are going to be kicking off right around 5 or 6 o'clock. I highly recommend you find your way down to the district tomorrow, Friday, May 5th. I mean, it's Cinco de Mayo. It's First Friday. It's the Arts District. Make sure you make a reservation today at either El Noa Noa or Chewy Foods. The crowds are going to be huge. The weather, we'll see how that goes. I do want to point out one thing. The art galleries are not museums. Try heading down to the Denver Art Museum and you see a beautiful piece on the wall there. Go ahead and ask the museum curator if you can buy that piece. Probably not likely. However, you head into any one of the wonderful galleries along the district here, and guess what? You see a piece on the wall, it would just look fabulous in your own home, and there's a good chance you can work out a price with the gallery and give that artwork its forever home. The galleries are there to sell art. I mean, sure, they appreciate the traffic. They love for you to come in and admire the various artists. But unlike the museum, these pieces are also available to you. And you may or may not yet identify as an art collector, but let me tell you what. It's one of the most exciting hobbies you can embark upon. You know, me and my husband, we started collecting art back in the early 2000s, and we've grown from the first few lithographs that we purchased into some really interesting and significant pieces. You know, it's really more about being the caretakers for these works, and someday they'll be passed on to a new set of collectors. All right, so that's my input for First Friday Art Walk. Be sure you do stop in at 858 Santa Fe Drive. Many of you already know this, but I volunteer on the board of directors there for ADSF. And our studio there is a gallery we have set up for our Emerging Artist Residency Program. I would love for you to come in, check it out, ask questions of the artists who will be there with their works, and they're there to answer your questions. All right, I kind of got off on a tangent there. Easy for me to do when we start talking about art. Let's get back on track here. I mean, after all, this is the Denver Homes Market Report. It's Denver's monthly real estate podcast where we talk about all things real estate here in the Mile High City. And this is our very first episode of season 4. I mean, wow, we've seen quite a lot happening in the real estate world. And the best news I have heard is that the feds are basically done raising rates. So we are likely either at or very close to the peak. Now, the feds will likely hold these rates for another year or so and sort of see how things pan out. And if inflation continues to come down, then you'll likely see the feds start slowly, and I mean very slowly, start cutting those rates back, probably towards the end of 2023, maybe in the beginning of 2024. So let's say you're a buyer out there. Let's talk to my buyers out there for a minute. So this is pretty exciting news. I mean, the good news and the bad news is if you've been waiting for a market crash, doesn't look like the market's headed for a crash. I mean, I'm seeing a 5 to maybe 10% price reductions as a softening of the market. However, we were so lopsided for the past 10 years. I mean, yes, we had 10 years of one of the strongest sellers markets I have seen. And I've been doing this for 20 years. You know, and with the apex of that coming in at spring 2022. That was sort of the official beginning of the end of an era for sellers markets, of all sellers markets, as the feds finally, and I really mean finally, started raising the rates. They were held far too low for far too long. So now here we are with, prices still holding fairly strong. The lenders are looking at ways to mitigate these higher rates, with the recent bank mergers and the bank failures. The banks know they need to make loans in order to stay profitable. So they are getting quite generous with some of the loan programs because they know those 3 to 4% rates, those are gone for now. How can they entice buyers to get off the sidelines and into new loans? I mean, unless you're currently a homeowner and your rate is somewhere around 7 or 8%, a refinance doesn't make any sense for most homeowners. So here's how all this helps you as buyers. You are enjoying that 5 to 10% drop in prices. You're finding some motivated sellers out there. I had one deal at the tail end of last year where the sellers had already contracted on their new build home and they had been trying to sell their home for nearly 2 months. That's traditionally not a long time. However, in the beginning of 2022, if your home did not have multiple offers by Monday after just one weekend of being for sale, that was unusual. So for a house sitting on the market for more than 2 months or just about 2 months at that time seemed daunting. Once my buyers presented an offer, the sellers couldn't wait to take it. And they had just dropped the price by a whopping $50,000, and we even offered a bit lower than that, and our offer was accepted. Then we had our home inspections, where the home was confirmed to have some asbestos ceiling tiles and probable floor tiles from the 1970s. We took our findings to the sellers, and we were able to negotiate thousands more off the price to help my buyers properly mitigate and remove that asbestos. So the moral of the story here is for my buyers, sure, the rates are going to live in the 6 to 7% range for the next year or so, at least without a crystal ball. All we can do is read between the lines of the Fed's comments. You now have a lot going for you as a home buyer. Banks are offering some goodies by way of rebates. In some cases, I've seen programs where the lender will pay you thousands of dollars. It's not a loan, it's not a grant. We are talking cold, hard cash at closing just for you to take out a mortgage loan on some of these properties. Now, they are paying for appraisals in some cases, etc. Then you have inventory. You can actually find homes that are available. In fact, right now in the MLS, we have over 8,000 homes to choose from right now. That's incredible. Here's the kicker. They are typically staying on the market for 38 days. That is the average a house will sit on the market before a buyer comes along, submits an offer, and the seller accepts it to go to contract. So now, buyers are finding the upper hand. You'll be smart to conduct all your home inspections, and guess what? If you do find something major, the sellers will most likely work with you to resolve it. The last thing sellers are wanting to do right now is going all the way back to square one if you were to walk away from the deal over an inspection issue. They very well may need to wait another 38 days or longer before another buyer comes along with an offer. They will bend over backwards to help you as the buyer get to the finish line on your new home. Buyers in this current market get a nice price reduction. They get inventory with over 8,000 homes to choose from. They get a motivated seller. They get open negotiations for repairs, or maybe the home needs a sewer line work, or maybe a radon system installed. I bet most sellers will work with you on these things now. A year ago, they had 30 offers by Monday, all over the asking price, with a stack of backup offers where buyers were just hoping the current buyer would back out so they could swoop in on that deal. They would not blink an eye when the seller's broker says, hey, ceiling, has asbestos. The buyers a year ago would say, okay, we'll take it. We'll deal with the repairs on our own later after close. So buyers of today are really now in the driver's seat on many of these deals out there. The market is shifting towards a more buyer-friendly equation. Sure, once you close, you may need to hold on to your 6 or 7% rate for the next year or two. But think about that. Most mortgage, they're 30 years. So, waiting just a couple of years before you refi into a lower rate. And you also must take into account all the other goodies I just mentioned up above. You're getting time. You're getting 8,000 plus homes to really pick your dream home. You are getting motivated sellers. You're getting lenders offering great loan programs. You're likely getting repairs done by the seller. When you put in your offer, It may be the only offer the seller has seen in the last 30 or 40 days, and in some cases, maybe much longer than that. So your chances are much better than a year ago of actually getting your offer accepted and sellers willing to work with you to get you to the finish line. I know today's podcast, it's been pretty heavy on the benefits of buyers, they're seeing. There's good reason for that. As you know, I often bring you real world scenarios in my podcast. It's part of why the Denver Homes Market Report is such a vital real estate update. This is why FeedSpot has ranked the Denver Homes Market Report number 2 in their top 10 Denver real estate podcast must follow in 2023. And this will be a great time for you to hit that subscribe button. As the markets shift, we see the pendulum swing towards seller. Now we are seeing the shift as towards more of a balanced market and even leaning into favor buyers. So many of us, we put on blinders. We see the interest rates have climbed to, from 3 or 4% to now 6 or 7%, and we feel we missed the boat. We forget that when the rates were at that 3 to 4%, we forget the bidding wars. We forget the helplessness, the idea of home ownership altogether. It felt like now basically playing the lottery. You would throw a stupid number out there and see if it sticks. People were foregoing their home inspections or maybe at least limiting their objections. The seller might see that as a means to maybe go after another offer that came in after yours that maybe looks stronger than yours. We forget that there were less than 4,000 homes available to choose from in the first place. And many of those, they were in bad shape and they could only command those high prices in a very tight, seller's market. We forget about, the homes that were poorly flipped. Many homes, they weren't even flipped. The large iBuyers, they were just buying up the homes for cash, doing nothing to them, and then putting back on the market with a $100,000 increase with nothing really to justify it. We forget many homes were selling for $100,000 over the asking price. We forget the long lines of people waiting to get in the open house. If there even was an open house, many listings, they were getting accepted offers even before they hit the market. I even had one deal where I had entered it into coming soon, and before we went live into the market, we had an offer with $100,000 over asking, 0 repairs to my sellers, and my sellers were allowed to stay in the home for 45 days after the close for free. Come on. If you were trying to be a homeowner, you had to be willing to give up a lot of protections in order to compete with all the other buyers that were out there. So if you're a buyer or you're a potential buyer out there, I want to make sure we listen to this podcast and then we listen to it again and realize you did not miss the boat. In fact, there are over 8,000 opportunities out there right now. Sellers are out there who have been waiting for their buyer to walk through those doors and say, this feels right to me. I want to buy this home and I want to buy it right. I've done all my due diligence up to this point. I'm ready to submit my offer. And once I complete my once we're in contract, I will complete my due diligence and ensure the home is right for me. All right, one last thing. I know Memorial Day is at the end of the month. And here we are, just the first Thursday. Please take time to reflect on those who gave the ultimate sacrifice to their country. I did serve in the U.S. Navy as a helicopter rescue swimmer. I joined the Navy in October of '94, shortly after the first Gulf War. And just as weird timing, I ended up getting out in April of 2000, which happened to be just before the second Gulf War started. Regardless of political affiliations, it is my hope that we can all agree to honor those who have lost their lives fighting for our freedoms. I hope you've enjoyed today's podcast. This is once again Ricky Schoonover, Mode Real Estate, and you have been listening to the Denver Homes Market Report. If you or someone you know are looking to buy or sell their Denver area home, please give me a call. 720-688-5110, or feel free to visit my website, denverhomesmarket.com. I hope you're going to tune in next month. June 1st just happens to be the first Thursday of the month, so we'll see you then.